Welcome back to the program, the first show of 2026. Happy New Year to you all. No, we didn't do a Full Throttle Thursday today. We will start that again next week. But I wanted to talk about a couple of interesting things today, and let's continue to talk about the fraud that is still being found and expanding all over the place. We know that it started in Minnesota. That was the number one place. That's the biggest Somali population. But it has now gone to, of course, Columbus, Ohio. It has now gone to Seattle, Washington, King County in particular, and even in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area as well. And I'm also hearing that there's going to be some investigations in other areas where there could be high amounts of them, like Boston, Massachusetts even, Vermont possibly, and some other places as well. So the citizen journalists are doing exactly what I suggested a few days ago. Go out there, knock on doors, take your video cameras, take your phones, record what you see, record what is going on in the parking lots, show the blacked out windows, show the fact that there's nothing, no playground areas, there's nothing, there's no children anywhere. Show it all and continue to post it on social media. And that is exactly what has been happening. Citizen journalists are taking to the streets and they are exposing more of the Somali fraud in Ohio, in Maine, in Pennsylvania, Washington State, and other places. Right now, they're in about 8 different states, these citizen journalists, and it could expand to double digits, a dozen or more. Let's hope that happens. Videos from Ohio, from Maine, from Pennsylvania, from Washington State, and of course Minnesota, and a few others suggest that the Somali fraud is rampant across the country, as we know. I said a couple days ago, I believe it's going to hit 18 states, mostly blue states, right? And I think that the amount is going to surpass probably $100 billion, would be my guess. If they actually go through all these different states, all these clusters of areas where there are tons of Somali businesses, you are going to find over $100 billion in fraudulent money. Now, I know President Trump said last night that he's going to get it all back, and that's wonderful. I think the easiest way to do it, contact the Prime Minister of Somalia and say, hey, look, right now, you're on the hook for $18 billion. So we're going to put a tariff or we're going to put a sanction on you, whatever it might be, for $18 billion. And we want all of that money back. And if you don't get it back in the next 90 days, well, then we're going to continue it and we're going to continue to take more and more of your money, starve out your people. So I think putting pressure on the country of Somalia to tell the Somali people here in America to fess up, get arrested, get out of the country, whatever it may be, and get that money back. That's one way to do it. Anyway, so let's talk about this. So this is Washington State. Washington State user Carlene Johnson said that she found a home registered as a daycare provider in Federal Way, Washington, but of course, no children were present when she stopped by to inquire. And here is another gentleman that put out a TikTok that talks about the fraud, and then we'll get to some more here.
I know just about everyone has seen the videos from Nick Shirley talking about what's happening with the Somali daycare centers in Minnesota. But did you know that in the state of Washington, there are 539 more Somali daycare centers? 539. Each receiving somewhere between $1.5 million to $4 million taxpayer money every year. Now, what do you think is going to happen when Nick catches a plane out to Washington? Do you think he's going to find that these Somali daycare centers actually have children there? Or do you think like me, and you think he's going to find more of the same that he found in Minnesota? But I just want y'all to think about that for a second, because when we think about government spending, we're like 1.4 million, 1.5 million, 4 million. That's not that much money. First of all, yes, it is, especially since we're talking about state taxpayer funds. But I want you to think about that number for a second. 539. And let's say all of them got the minimal funding. If they each only got the absolute minimal funding, that's $755 million. What's more likely is it's over $1 billion. That is $1 billion of your taxpayer money going to people who aren't actually running a daycare, or as they were in Minnesota, a leering center. So either you care about fraud, waste, and abuse, or you don't. And that'll be determined whether or not you want to speak up about this. But if you're not going to speak up about this very obvious fraud, you're not going to speak up about billions of dollars of waste. That is obvious. And could you do me a favor and just shut the fuck up about everything else?
Amen to that. Absolutely. Now, here is another person who did some digging in Washington State.
So we're at the site of one. This is what I was told I was going to see, a bunch of these bilingual schools. This is the first one I've seen. So I had to pull over and actually take a shot of it.
It's just an abandoned building, all blacked out. Let's see, here's another one. A lot of these are just short little videos. Let's see here. Here we go. Here's somebody that 20 daycares in a 3-block area, all in subsidized housing, by the way. Unbelievable.
We got ring.
Knocking on the door.
So as you can see, no one here is answering. It's just past 10 a.m. right now. Oh, looking to get some information about childcare. Okay, so as you can see, I just asked about childcare. Is this childcare for children? It's not? Yeah, I just want to make sure this is Tawakkul House. Yes. Okay, just wanted to make sure. What's the email address? Noreen Childcare here at 2918. Okay, how come I can't receive childcare here? Okay.
They're so stupid too, because every single time they open the door, and some of these people say, I want to learn about putting my child in childcare, they just slam the door. I mean, you know it's fraudulent at that point, right?
Face covering required. I saw this location on the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. I just saw you go in a moment ago, ma'am. Are you unfamiliar with this address right here, 2918, is listed?
I don't know.
The kid started to answer honestly, and his dad then became a bit panicked and rushed him inside. Hello? I saw you move the blinds. I'm just looking for some information about childcare, daycare. Looking for information about childcare, please. So the person just moved the blinds over there. There's absolutely someone here. This business is open right now, according to the DCYF website. If you've seen the Nick Shirley story on YouTube about Minnesota, where they've got all those facilities over.
So then he's talking to the police there. And then there's this one here, $800,000 for another fake daycare center. The Hilal Safia Daycare Center in Kent, Washington.
All right, we are at Hilali Safia Child Care Center in Kent, Washington. They have received $863,000 since 2023. I don't see any signs right off the bat that it's a child care facility. There's no car seats, there's no children's toys, nothing like that. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna check it out.
They're basically pulling up to someone's home, okay? And it's in a rough area, and it's a family house. And so what they're probably doing is they're saying that their homes are daycare centers, when of course they're not. And so then they're getting money to pay for their mortgage and their rent and everything else, and pretending they have a daycare center with no signs, no children, no playgrounds, no nothing.
Hi, is this Hilali Childcare? No. No? There's no childcare here? Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Have a good one. There's no childcare.
Meanwhile,
All right, guys, we were just at Hilali, what's allegedly Hilali Child Care Center in Kent, Washington, which is right behind me right here. We went up to the door, the exact address listed on the state website. receiving over $800,000 in 2023. They claim there's no child care here.
A couple $100,000 for the cars.
I went and tried to ask neighbors if there was daycare there. Nobody answered. But I could see the people who lived in that house peeling the curtains back because just like all of the other...
Okay, what you can't see here are 4 cars, really nice cars, okay? There's a Tesla. There is that looks like a Lexus, and then it looks like there's a Land Cruiser, and it looks like a sports car of some kind. I can't tell. It's not a Corvette. I'm not sure what it is because there's a bush behind it. But regardless, you've got 3 very expensive cars in an area of high crime and destitute area for sure. You can tell from the way it looks. There's no daycare. There's no children. There's no one playing outside. Nothing. Not even a sign on this one. But yet you have 4 high-dollar sports cars, Land Cruisers, things like that, Teslas right there in the driveway. Unreal. We are getting fucking hosed. Holy cow. Man, you got to give them credit for doing it. But you know what? The thing is, they were so sloppy. They didn't even care. I mean, it's not just the leering part. It's just the fact that they put the hours up. They put the names of the businesses up. They use the same addresses. Hell, a couple of the phone numbers go directly to Tim Walz's office. I mean, this is as sloppy can get, okay? You've heard of sloppy seconds? This is like sloppy 800ths, okay? I mean, it's just an absolute mess. And they don't care. And the reason they don't care is because they know they have no one that's going to do anything about it. Perhaps until now. Unreal. Here's another one. Excuse me. Independent journalist confronted someone at a place listed as a, quote, child care center in Washington State again. And there's registered for 30 kids. And they got 864,000.
Hi, is this Halali childcare?
No, this is...
No? There's no childcare here?
Same one. By the way, they also have nice Christmas decorations up and everything else. Now, let's see. Then you have Tim Walz, who's an absolute moron. I'll get to him in just a second. But here's another one in Columbus, Ohio now. So we went from Washington State. Now we're going to Columbus, Ohio. Let's see here. Play. Why isn't it playing? Come on. Play the video. That's weird. No, this one's not playing, and I don't want to do it on X. Hang on. We've got another one. There's a bunch of them. Here's more. And this one is also in Ohio as well. So let me... why aren't these working? Oh, they want me to go to X. That's fine. I'll just go to X then for it. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but whatever. So here you go. So this guy here...
No reviews. And then this one, Ka Child Care, which is listed at 2635 Dublin. And that's this spot here. You gotta love the 1-star award winner. But mostly you just notice, like, there's no playground, there's no kids. And this place is listed as being permanently closed, but it got 1 review. And it's been open since 2018. So in the last, 5-6 years, 1 review. And it gets spicier because there is this congressperson, Ismail Mohammed, who's of Somali descent, who is receiving campaign donations from these daycare centers. Star Zone Daycare, Bright Kids Academy.
So imagine that. You have these Somali members of the legislature in Ohio, I guess, that are actually getting donations coming in from fake daycare centers. I'm telling you, this thing's going to get big and it's going to get wide.
All right, so here is Bright Kids Academy. We get the classic blacked out windows again. No reviews. Here is the Star Zone Daycare here. Again, blacked out windows, no cars, no playground. They do have a few reviews, and this lady said it's a joke. The teachers are not trained and are basically women that bring their kids to the center, and this is going to come back. Here's another one that donated to his campaign, Primo One Daycare. Again, classic, no cars, blacked out windows. And they had the wherewithal to put up these, nice looking photos, but again, no reviews. And here's this one, Rise Up Daycare, which is in this place. Again, classic, no playground. They say that they've enrolled 71 kids, which means they're getting reimbursed for, more kids. But when they were actually inspected, there was hardly any kids in the building. So yeah, it looks like the same scheme that's been used in Minnesota likely seems like it's going on in Ohio. And when I'm reflecting on this, it just makes me remember that Somalis follow this Islamic tradition where men can marry up to 4 wives, provided they're able to support them. And based on my research, it just seems like oftentimes what will happen is there will be one official marriage and then more cultural marriages. But then I started thinking about this lady's review where she was like, hey, the teachers aren't trained and they're basically just women that bring their kids to the center. And I was like, oh yeah, of course, that might jive with this whole thing. And so it's like, all right, cool. So if the guys are able to support them is the big thing, but just are we the ones supporting them? And if so, just genuine question, do we want to do that?
Exactly. Absolutely. And then there was a couple
All right,
of
so
others.
a lot of this
There was this one too. Let me see, where is that other one? Another one, they knock on the door, and then there's this guy, and then, hang on, there's this one. I think this one. Yeah.
The Maternity Care Coalition is a nonprofit that got...
Okay, so this is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is let's see, what is this place called? The Maternity Care Coalition of Philadelphia has received $23 million to, quote, run daycares and provide other services. So, another civic activist decided to go out into this area of Philadelphia, and this is what he found.
The Maternity Care Coalition is a nonprofit that got $23 million from the government to run daycares like this. So it is 2 p.m. This place is supposed to be open. It closes at around 4:30. We're going to try and buzz one more time to see if anybody opens up. Looking for childcare. Okay, so nobody's going to open. Okay, another entrance. Gonna knock again. Again, it's 2 p.m., so within operating hours, this place should be open. Little Frank needs childcare. Hello? Childcare. Okay, so they didn't answer, so we're gonna call the number on their website, and let's see if they answer.
Thank you for calling Maternity Care Coalition. We're closed for the Independence Day holiday.
It's a little bit cold for Independence Day.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that means they haven't changed their message for that long, which means they're probably closed down, but yet they're still on the Pennsylvania docket as being opened and still getting that cash. Unbelievable. The amount of fraud is just insane. And this one here is Boston, Massachusetts. This person exposed 4,000 daycares in a 20-mile radius around Boston. 4,000. And he kind of gives you a little bit more information and explains kind of how the whole thing works.
So a lot has happened in the course of the last couple of hours. I think the majority of the fraud is happening in clusters within the same either family members or groups of people or whatever it may be. And it's all happening at it's not very deep, but it's very wide, if that makes sense. So I think that what's happening is it's happening in clusters. And these are clusters.
I disagree. I think it's very deep and very wide, because I think this goes way up to the top. This isn't just the Somalis. Who's funding them? Who's paying for them? Who's looking the other way? Who is writing them the checks? I mean, this is very deep and very wide.
Of let's say, condos or multifamily homes or whatever it is, and what is happening, and I'm going to find it, by the way, and what's happening is they are all using these single apartments, single condos, or potentially even a single family home if it's really outside of Boston. They're using those as the daycares. That's what's happening. Okay, and their capacity is not the same as it is in Minnesota. That's just the fact. So I think it's happening at scale with the smaller capacity. But so there's probably more people committing fraud at a smaller scale, if that makes sense. So like you're not going to have one building that is committing $5 million in fraud, but you might have 50 buildings that are committing $1 million in fraud. That is going to be the difference between Massachusetts and a place like Minneapolis, because again, the barrier to entry to open a daycare is very, very low, which provides the barrier to entry for fraud to be very, very, very high. And it's very unfortunate because who gets stuck with the bill? We do. What these businesses are doing is that they're charging the state basically to subsidize the payments for these kids that are not even showing up there. The parents are saying that the kids are showing up there, and then both the daycare and the parent allegedly are splitting the money. This is happening.
It is happening all over the country, and it's happening all over this community. And this was Tampon Timmy in the debate with JD, talking about how easy he's made it to get child care. Listen to this dickhead.
Or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
And make fraud almost undetectable. If, God forbid, we win the presidency. And as I predicted a long time ago, I said, heels up headboard Harris is not the issue here, folks. It is Tim Walz. And I said, it is Tim Walz that we have to worry about, not Harris. She was stupid. She was dumb. She had no sense about her, no wits about her. And clearly, he's an effective communist, radical, extremist governor. And he was able to pull this off. He was able to pull this off in this community, all for votes. So imagine if, God forbid, this psychopath was in the White House. Holy shit balls. That's all I can really say to that. So I was right. He was the more dangerous of the two, and clearly now we can see it. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about on this segment, because I know this one's kind of a long one, is that there's been a story, and again, it's a quote story because it's total bullshit, that one of these Somali sewer rats said that they were broken into in a quote brazenly broken into mysterious break-in, and they said that their quote documents were stolen. Meanwhile, this Somali sewer rat is wearing $2,300 glasses during this cry session to the prostitutes in the Minneapolis media. But the cops, they're not buying it, and neither are we, okay? Because it doesn't add up. Here's what they say. So here, first you have the alleged garbage. A Somali-run daycare in Minneapolis is claiming that somebody, them, broke in and stole, quote, important documents. But then the cops say that the facility did not report anything that was actually taken, number one. And number two, where was the police report? There was no police report. So in other words, when the feds came a-knocking, he started breaking down his own walls in his own place. Okay? That's what happened here. 100%. And by the way, what documents? Why would you have even one document? No one's going to check for any documents. You've been stealing from the Minnesota taxpayers for years. Why would one document be even important? Of course not. No one's going to ask for the documents. Well, maybe now they will, and you don't have them. So now you're in big trouble, right? So, of course, these morons, right, that spell Leering Center are so intelligent and articulate and bright that they go, well, maybe we ought to rob ourselves and tell the police that someone broke in and stole our documents and blame it on Nick Shirley. I mean, these people are so stupid. That's why they're third world. When you import the third world, you're going to get third world results. The alleged burglary comes as the national spotlight has been shined on the multi-billion-dollar fraud scandals involving Minnesota Human Services, with particular scrutiny on daycare facilities run by these Somali sewer rats, after dozens of people from the community have been busted for pilfering state funds. Nasrullah Muhammad, manager of Nakomis Daycare Center, told reporters that a, quote, suspect entered through the kitchen. Yes, there was a suspect. And, well, what did he look like? Well, he was black, and he had big bulging eyes and a thin little tic-tac neck, and he looked like he was starving, except for the fact that he eats probably well and better than most Americans. He kind of looked like me. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this Somali sewer rat then says, the alleged prowler, now he's a prowler, right? Not just a burglar, he's a prowler. Prowler stole, quote, important documents, including children's enrollment information. Oh, yes, of course. That would be the document that would be missing, right? Sure. You know, these Somali sewer rats are not very bright, number one. And number two, we need to send all of you out of the country. And honestly, what I hope happens is not only you end up in jail and prison and everything else, but more importantly, I hope that you are so uncomfortable from the racial profiling that is now going to be laser focused in your community from all these other people around the country that are going to continue to knock on your doors, continue to ask for child care services, and make your lives so miserable that you're going to get the fuck out of our country. And maybe you'll do it on your own volition. That would be my hope. So then he said the prowler broke in and stole, of course, the most important thing, right? Child enrollment information. You know, the ones you'll never, ever be able to prove because not one child has ever even entered your daycare. Yeah, those documents. However, no loss was reported to the officers, nor was there a police report filed with the Minneapolis Police Department. Oh, gee, I wonder why. Maybe because Nimrod Muhammad over here broke into his own place. Unreal. Video of the purported break-in shared by Nakomis Daycare showed a hole in the wall in what appeared to be a utility closet with nearly stacked piles of cinder blocks behind the drywall. This is devastating news, and we don't know why this is targeting our Somali community, as one person said, made in a video, specific individual made all this happen, talking about, of course, Nick doing his excellent work. Now, the picture that you see, you know what it reminds me of? I'll tell you what it reminds me of. You remember the movie Casino from like, what was it, 98, 97, somewhere around there? You remember when Nicky Santoro gets his hands on Vegas and they're doing the narration and it's De Niro's voice and he goes, these folks out west have never seen anything like a Nicky Santoro and his crew. I mean, they were robbing everything from banks to restaurants to everything. And what they did is they put a giant hole into the wall and they cut it out perfectly neatly and pulled everything out, went in and stole everything. That's what this reminds me of. The only difference is it's not as neat and clean because it does look like he took a hammer to it and broke through it. And again, he might have done that on purpose too. $1 billion in fraud has been uncovered. Yeah, we know about that. And now the Nokomis Daycare Center apparently now takes down their blackened windows and, throws a couple of pictures of children at desks on the outside to, make you all believe that there's really children inside learning or leering. Yeah, there's children inside and they're leering their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Get the hell out of here. I hope all of this is exposed. I hope President Trump makes sure that every one of these people involved is denaturalized and deported. Look, I don't want this to be a situation where they arrest 15 to 20 of these Somali sewer rats and then they forget about the rest. I want the Democrats, I want the governor, I want the lieutenant governor, I want the attorney general, I want that scumbag Jacob Fry, I want them all. Every single one of them. We cannot have a low-hanging fruit where they arrest a few people and then tell us all to forget about it and look the other way. Bullshit to that. This entire thing needs to come down and come down now. As I said, the worst mistake they ever made was shutting the government down. Because once they got greedy and tried to shut President Trump down and the government down, guess what? Now all of a sudden, all of the bodies that they've been buried for years are now crawling out. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.